Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, September 3rd. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Created by seasoned school administrators, Speak Life End Bullying for Schools is a complete turnkey resource to help breathe life into your student body and open the door for empathy, positive communication, and healing. The national nonprofit offers a unique approach to supporting school-aged children facing bullying through a musical. Let's take a look at this trailer to learn a little bit more about the musical.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the show.
One by one, tear down these walls. No way that they can stop us. No, they won't stop us.
Welcome to the chaos.
This is our story. Come here as you are. It's okay to be human. This is our story. Come here as you are. It's okay to be human. You don't have to look too far. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. Are you listening to me right now? A brighter day.
Dan Burd, the co-founder of Speak Life End Bullying, joins me now. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, I'm curious to know a little bit more just about the background of, just the beginnings of Speak Life End Bullying. I understand this is something that you and your wife, Rebecca, created. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, this musical started about 20 years ago, back in 2001, just following Columbine. We were working with youth, and we actually went to a youth networker meeting, and we heard this guy play an audio clip about his story of being bullied. And there's about 50 people in this room, and they're all different ages. And once that audio clip was done, I was moved, and as I looked around the room, you could see everyone in the room was moved, hearing about this guy's story of bullying as a kid. And so both my wife and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, we need to do something, So we went up to the guy that was running the meeting and we're like, we feel like we can't leave. I feel like something needs to happen, we need to do something. And he looked at us and he said, well, you guys are the artists, go do something about it. And so we did. We went back, we met with our staff, and we said, look, we're gonna put together this show based around this stuff that we just heard. And the story follows the life of 4 ordinary students at school. One of those students is Daniel. His name is Daniel. Follows my kind of experience. It was based after me and the things that I had gone through as a kid. And, jump forward 15 years later, we've seen over 500,000 students in 350 schools across the United States. And then COVID hit. We couldn't tour anymore because schools were all closed. So we actually partnered with Justin Simmons, who's a safety for the Atlanta Falcons, and he helped us to put it on film the same way that Hamilton was put on film. It's a Broadway-style show that was filmed as a Broadway-style show, and now we're able to distribute that nationally to schools and to parents across the country. So it's been a very exciting journey, and we love doing it.
And I want to say congratulations, because I just know, just in general, that it's not easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it, and so I can see just by the trailer how much was put into it, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, I love musicals. What inspired you to kind of take the musical route with this?
I grew up in musical world. In high school, I played sports and I did musicals. So I loved musicals. My wife is a dancer and a director. I'm an actor and a singer. So when we got married, it was kind of like, this is what we do. We love watching musicals. We love being a part of them. And so it was just the most natural expression for us when we felt like we really wanted to zero in on something and begin helping people. We felt like, what tool do you have in your hand that you're able to use? And for us, that was musicals. We were running a performing arts company at the time for teenage kids, and this just seemed like the most natural extension of ourselves to help in a situation that was both something that had impacted me as a kid and then something that I wanted to help change for my kids.
Now, when we talk about bullying, we usually think it's maybe a one-sided thing.
Right.
But I understand that there may be multiple layers. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned about that?
Yeah, we talk about it in percentages. We say that, statistically speaking, 10% of students in a school would consider themselves to be the bully. 30% of the kids in those schools, 20 to 30% would consider themselves to be the victim. And then 60% of kids in schools really just kind of bystanders. Nobody messes with them. They don't mess with anybody else. They just don't really get involved. And so we actually target that 60% because we know that if we can mobilize, that's the largest army in a school to help really create an impact in what's going on. So that's kind of how things get broken up, and we do different things for the 10%, different things for the 30%, those kids that are feeling that they're being victimized. And then we target specifically as a nonprofit that 60% of kids that would say they just don't get involved. And we're like, no, it's time to get involved.
Now, we know just because of life, bullying can start as early as kindergarten, first
Yes.
grade. But I understand that the musical may focus on a little bit on older children.
Yes.
Can you explain, why you wanted to focus on that age group?
It just started very organically. Both my wife and I worked, again, with youth, and we were working with teenage kids at the time. So when we wrote the musical, we're like, this is going to be for teenage kids. And then as we began touring in schools and kind of covering the United States, we began to realize 99% of what is out there when it comes to anti-bullying stuff is all for elementary school and younger, preschool. So, I mean, if you just Google anti-bullying, everything that's going to come up is going to have young kid GIFs, like little images and pictures that are all for elementary school. And it's very difficult to find something that is quality and usable in a middle school and a high school. So when we actually began really honing in, I mean, we did this over 20 years live. So every year we would hone in and rewrite, throw in new songs, change out songs, change jokes, whatever didn't land, we would switch it on the fly. And so we had a really good time being able to do that. And so after 20 years, you begin to figure out what really works and what's there. And so for us, we began to realize there wasn't anything that was worthwhile. I can't say not anything because there's some really great companies out there, but there was no one doing what we were doing that was for middle school and high school. And so most of the time, high schools, if you're an educator out there in middle school or high school, you know that you have to use something from an elementary level and tool it up to work in a middle school or a high school level. So we specifically target secondary schools.
Now, what I think is so interesting is a lot changes over 20 years,
Yes.
Especially the youth and what
Yep.
is cool and what is not cool. How have you, been able to kind of evolve
Yes.
and make it relate to the children of today or over time?
Well, if you ask my kids, they would say we're not cool, but they actually come back and they're like, all my friends think you guys are really cool. So we recognized as we got to a certain age, we were like, look, we need to start asking our kids what they think. So our kids, as they've grown up, have really gotten involved and help us to stay fresh on what's happening in schools. But I mean, we would go to malls and we would look around and see what kids are wearing, listen to how they were talking, and interview people and talk and visit schools, And when you're on tour in the United States, you can go from California to Indiana to New York. Very, very different. I mean, we did inner city schools in Chicago, we did rural schools in Indiana, and we would have principals come up to us all the time. I'd be standing in the back of the auditorium and they would say, how did you know? And I'd be like, how did I know what? And they're like, how did you know what my kids were like? And I'm like, I think the thing that when you get stuck in genres, you don't realize kids are kids. Doesn't matter where they grew up, kids are kids. They all deal with the same struggles. They have specific, things that are specific to them based on where they grow up or the economic level that they grow up in. But kids deal with kid things, and bullying is a human experience. It's not any one group. It's a human experience.
Now, with that being said, we kind of focus on schools a lot, but
Yes.
what role do parents play and how could they be more involved?
Parents play a huge role. The name of our company is called Speak Life End Bullying because we start with the solution. If we can teach our kids the culture of speaking life to other people, we know bullying ends. Bullying thrives in an environment where the bully is allowed to thrive. So if we can, like the targeting of those 60%, if we can create a culture inside that 60%, then we can create a culture of speaking life. The bully isn't getting what they're wanting any longer. They're not getting that satisfaction, and so they actually start to shift towards what gives them that satisfaction, which is what those other kids are doing. So you'll see bullies, they become our biggest advocate, and that really starts at home, because their parents are going to be the ones that need to create a culture of speaking life in their home. It's not okay for us to leave it to the schools to be responsible to raise our children. It's the school's responsibility to educate our children, and we are giving our children to them to educate with us, but it needs to be in partnership. But parents really need to be the ones that are responsible for creating a culture of speaking life in their home, so that when that student leaves and goes into a world and a culture that's always going to be against them, they know that they have something that can build them up and lift them up, that they have a solid rock to go back to.
Now, how can schools connect with you to have their students see your musical, and where can people go in general just to learn more?
Absolutely. Just in general, if you're a school or if you're a parent, if you want to know more, we have a parent product for you that will help you to create that culture in your school. You can, or in your home, you can go to speaklifethemusical.org, speaklifethemusical.org. And if you're a family, you can click on Speak Life at Home. And if you're a school, you can click on Speak Life and Bullying for Schools.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, what do you hope to see for the future of this? It's been 20 years so far. What do you hope to see for the next 20 years?
Oh my gosh. You asked that question when we are just gearing up towards our new school year. We actually have a tour that's happening. We used to tour live, and then when we put it on film, we couldn't tour anymore. We just distribute it. And so now we have a hybrid model where we actually take the film into schools and do it for them. And so that's exciting. And then we're getting ready to launch our home product. So you can sign up for the launch of our home product as well. That's coming very, very soon. So for the future, we would love to see more musicals. We would love to see more topics that we can hit. But right now, bullying is very close to my heart, because it's what I went through as a kid, and it's what I just want to see no other student have to go through.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and just this beautiful world that you created. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
To learn more about Dan and his wife Rebecca's mission to end bullying permanently, please go to their website, speaklifethemusical.org. Don't go away, we'll be back with more Open right after this.